In this video, we want to go ahead and get ourselves set up so where we can very easily add passive abilities and also discuss one of the pain points slash flaw points that we are going to resolve. So what I mean by passive ability is I mean an ability that is activated and is basically set up to constantly run. And it's basically there to listen for and respond to events and or things like inputs, that sort of thing. So the problem is if we have the net execution policy of, say, server initiated, such as we want to have a passive ability that when we, load in, we want it to be granted to us and activated, it will not run on our client. So that's where an issue of order of operations comes into play in how we are adding these abilities in begin play is firing too early. So for reference, if I go over to our add ability function, and I change it from give ability to give ability and activate once, which for whatever reason it complains when I have that as the, I'm creating it inside of the parameter. So let's pretend we call give ability and activate once. Well, with our jump ability, can't speak, let's go ahead and see what happens. So what I'm going to do is I want to change our net execution policy to be server initiated, and I'm going to remove our end ability call. So basically, this will fire when it's given to us. So whenever this ability is added, it just activates. So I'm playing as a client. I'm going to press play, and you can see server jump ability active. Well, according to the net execution policy of server initiated, the ability is initiated by the server, but will also run on the local client if one exists. And if you recall, we also have our input set up. So because this is not active on the client, whenever I press space, you can see it now also says jump ability active on the client as well as jump ability active on the server. And when I release it, we have our on input released and on input pressed and whatnot. So it's basically getting activated twice. So right now the inputs are firing just client side. If I were to go ahead and replicate, this will actually show the problem better. So let's press play, jump ability active, and I'll press the key. You can see the server prints it out twice. So I'm going to release. So you can see when I press space, this fires twice on the server because it's activating the ability again on the server, and likewise only once on the client. Then when I release, fires again twice on the server. So let's go ahead and clear that. I press space. On input press fires client side once. On input press fires server side twice, because the server has two versions of this ability, set up. Now this could be partially resolved by instance per actor, but we're not focused on that yet. So we need to resolve this. And the way to do that is to basically not do this in begin play. So there are other functions, and if we go ahead and look, and this took quite a bit of time to dig, but there is a OnPlayerControllerSet, and if we go and find it, it is not there. So here's being called, and you can see it's being called in init from actor, which is being called from set avatar actor. So basically, once the abilities component is being, I guess you could say, constructed for the initial time, even though this will fire whenever your avatar actor changes, such as we change characters and we have the ability system component on, say, our player state, this logic here only runs the initial time. So OnPlayerControllerSet fires once everything is quote unquote constructed initially. So we're going to override OnPlayerControllerSet, create our definition, and simply move our begin play logic down into OnPlayerControllerSet. So now let's go ahead and close out, recompile and relaunch, and see what happens. Alrighty, back in the editor, we still have the same setup. Execution policy is server initiated, but this time when I press play, you can see both the client and the server have the activate ability print that we made here. So now when I press spacebar, on input press fires once on server and client. When I release it, it fires once on server and client again. So that kind of resolves our issue that was mentioned at the beginning And now we want to set up some sort of system for basically dictating a passive ability. So we don't necessarily want to, I'm already in it. We don't necessarily want to call give ability and activate once. We can go a little bit beyond, and this is where I was kind of a little bit torn on some designs, because initially my thought was, okay, we're going to have another array dedicated to passive abilities. That's fine, but here's where I was a little bit kind of concerned. That would require, in this sense, that the ability is granted to us and activated at the very start. So from basically the start of this component being constructed to the end. And I don't know if that's necessarily the greatest idea, because that loses a little bit of flexibility. For example, if you wanted to have basically, I'm trying to think of an example. Let's just revert to Call of Duty Zombies, where you are alive and moving around, and then you are downed and needing to be revived. Let's say we wanted to have some specific ability that happens when you are downed, and that exists the whole time you're downed. Well, actually, that's a bad example. Let's just run with it. So we don't have an ability granted to us at the time of start or playing. We play, we get downed, and we can go ahead and grant that ability. And basically we can have it set up to where that ability will just persist, well, kind of in a way forever, unless we wanted to specifically end it, as well as maybe clear it. So my thought was we can have one to do it here, or we can actually do the logic inside of the ability itself. So I'm going to do I'll do it in the ability itself. I believe that it's going to be a little bit more flexible. The only difference being you have to specify it inside of the gameplay ability itself, which may or may not be wanted. So what we can do is we can set this up to do both. So what I mean by that is we can have a normal setup of quote unquote starting abilities, and this will be our starting passive abilities, as well as in our input gameplay ability. This will have a little additional logic, so whenever this ability is granted, we can go ahead and try to activate it if we define it as a passive ability. So to begin, let's go ahead and close down the editor, and we're going to start with the first one first because it's very simple. So we're going to copy and paste the starting abilities, and we're just going to call this one starting passive abilities. Now, one additional change needs to happen in our add ability and add abilities, and that is we need an additional parameter to dictate as to whether or not we want to auto activate. So we're going to do bool be auto activate, and I'm going to set this to false by default, so it is a optional parameter. Now let's go to add ability and add abilities and pass that in. Now in our add abilities, when we call add ability, we just need to forward on the be auto activate parameter, and we are good to go. So now in our add ability, we can utilize this. So we're going to go ahead and create our ability spec, and we're going to do a check. So if auto activate, then we want to give ability and activate once. Otherwise, we just want to give ability. Very simple. So let's go ahead and give this a test. Alrighty, so it did not like that. And be auto activate, now that I remember, actually is a hopefully it'll take us to it. Let me just go ahead and rename it. Long story short, the actor component has a variable called be auto activate, so we need to rename this. So we're going to rename it to be auto activate ability. So if I don't change this one here and I go to it, you can see it's in the actor component. So rename that to be auto activate ability and recompile and relaunch. Okay, once we are back in the editor, we can go to our third person character, go to our ability system component, and we have a new setup for passive abilities. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to create a new dedicated passive ability. So we have GA jump, and we're just going to have a new one called GA passive ability. And this is going to be more or less a simple test ability. So inside of GA passive ability, we're leaving it to server initiated, and I'm just going to rename jump to passive ability active. So let's go to, what do you call it? And actually in here, I'm just going to create a wait a wait delay of 1 second, and basically going to print off this nonstop, just so we have something that we can see, okay, something is in fact here, it is constantly running, so we know we're okay. So in the third person character, we have starting passive abilities. Let's go ahead and set the GA passive ability and press play. Okay, now let's wait a second or so, and I feel like I forgot something. Let's look in the Yeah, that should be good to go. Just in case, I'm going to print one at the start of the activate ability. And I realized what I forgot to do. So on OnPlayerControllerSet, we're calling add abilities, but we're only calling it with the starting abilities. We forgot to call it, well, at least I forgot, to call it with the starting passive. So we're going to call add abilities with the starting passive abilities, and we're going to pass in true for the auto activate ability. So let's give this another run, and that would probably explain why. Okay, press play. And as you can see, it is, well, firing client and server side for the wait delay, and we still have our jump. So we still have our on input pressed and released and all that kind of stuff. And those are also firing on the passive ability because we have them bound like so. Okay, so that resolves the ability system component kind of portion. And now we want to basically set this up to where we can do it inside of the ability portion. So what we're going to do is go back to our input gameplay ability, and under, we'll do it underneath of, let's do it above input tag. And let's give this a name of something other than input, such as, what do you call it? It's whatever, when something executes. We'll just call it execution. So we're going to name this one bool, be auto activate. And we'll just make it false by default. And we'll leave a comment of, if this is true, or let's do it, setting for initial activation. If true, this will be useful for something such as a passive ability, just so we have some initial bare bones description. Okay, and now we are also going to want to go ahead and override, let's see, where would be a good spot. We'll go ahead and override on avatar set. And pretty much in here, we want to do our check. So if we are set to auto activate, we're going to go ahead and, well, activate. So try, oh wait, we can't do that. Grab our actor info, grab the ability system component, try activate ability, which takes in a ability spec. So we're going to pass in spec.handle, or sorry, it takes in a spec handle, and it auto included the ability system component. So let's see. And in our case, in this specific case, we don't really want to allow for remote execution. So we're going to pass in false. So let's go ahead and close and relaunch. Okay, and back in the editor, we're going to go to our third person character, ability system component, and we are going to remove our passive abilities from GA passive ability. And we're just going to add it. Actually, we're going to replace the jump ability with our passive ability. So now in our passive ability, we're going to enable auto act, or let's leave it disabled first just to make sure. So we press play and nothing prints out. Now let's go to auto activate, press play. And as you can see, the ability now auto activates. So everything is working kind of as we want. So now we have the option to basically start up passive abilities from our ability system component that we would want to say happen from the very beginning, as well as we have the ability per ability to basically initialize or auto activate abilities when they are granted to us. So at any point in time, when we grant this passive ability, it'll just auto activate for us. We don't need to do anything special, nothing like that. So that is going to be all for this video, and we are nearing the end, but basically what the series is as I go through and I'm working on other stuff and I'm finding either pain points or areas of expansion that I see that are needed, I go through and I add them, and then I come back and I will go ahead and record them as an extension of this series. So this will always be kind of growing, so to speak. And yeah, that's about it. So not sure if there will be another video. There probably will be, but either way, I'll see you in the next of something.